Hello and welcome back to those who have seen previous videos in this series. I'm going to be talking about time. Time, according to David Bowie, flexes like a whore, falls wanking to the floor, is trick as you and me, babe. And that's, I would reckon, one of the more intelligent things that's been said about time. You look at philosophy, you will see endless theories by philosophers on the nature of time, claiming it to be real or unreal, or making various distinctions between the past and the future, etc. And you'll have gathered from the previous videos in this series, I think that's just all a complete waste of time. A waste of time. Because this is something you can't reason out. Time is an absolute fact. It's a mystery. It's part of the question with a capital Q. And you can't answer that question, you can only contemplate it. Now this morning I was thinking about this video, what I would say, and I've got loads of things that I could say. I'm not going to say even a fraction of them. And the thought of how to, what I said earlier about David Bowie just came into my head like a minute before. So where that came from, I don't know. Some memory somewhere. But I was thinking about this video, which hadn't been made. And assuming that this is successful, this afternoon I'll be thinking about the video that I made. What is this thing that exists in the future? Does it exist in the future? Waiting to be made? Or is the future kind of formless? And what about the past? Do things in the past exist? Supposing there was a nuclear holocaust and everything was destroyed, would this video still be a fact about, the history of the universe? And these are questions that are real. They're questions that are real but have no answer. This is the point that I've repeated endlessly in these videos. There are questions, the most important questions we cannot answer. We can only contemplate them. They are part of the question, the nature of existence, or the nothing, or the cosmic stop sign, the various equivalent formulations. So anyway, today I'm talking about a place that I like in Sheffield. And you can actually see it on the computer behind me. That's a Mac. You wouldn't know it. That's an old Macintosh. And on the screen you can see early evening. It's Tudor Square in Sheffield, and you can see the Crucible Theatre and the Lyceum Theatre. I talk about these in the chapter. And it's actually from an angle that I'm at where I would be sitting eating my lunch. So that's that. If you want something to imagine, or you can look it up on Google Maps and sit there with me, so to speak. Let's begin. Philosophizer's Bible, Chapter 13, Tudor Square. One of my favourite places in my home city of Sheffield is Tudor Square, where I am now. You have to imagine that. I'm sitting on a bench in the sunlight. I often come here at lunchtime with my supermarket sandwiches and bottle of pop. To my left is the famous Crucible Theatre, which every year hosts the World Snooker Championship. Facing me is the Lyceum Theatre, with its magnificent proscenium arched stage, built in 1897 and restored to full glory in 1990, having survived the threat of demolition thanks to a vigorous local campaign. On a quiet Sunday, I might be the only one here, not a human being in sight. Sometimes I like to imagine what this place will look like in 10,000 years' time. Will all human life be gone? Suppose I was transported 10,000 years into the future. What would I see? Will these bricks and glass and concrete have been returned to forest, with barely a mark to show the buildings that once stood here? Or will I find myself in the middle of a great megalopolis, with buildings stretching up into the stratosphere? Will anything exist in 10,000 years' time? Will there still be a world, a universe? According to the laws of physics, it is impossible that the entire universe could be gone in such a tiny splinter of time by cosmological standards. But that assumes, as we've already seen, that the laws can't be broken, that the universe couldn't just go out of existence in an instant. Certainly all life on Earth would be extinguished if our planet was hit by a giant asteroid or burnt up by a great solar flare. Those are real possibilities, and 10,000 years is plenty of time for that to happen. And this moment, this very moment that is so real to me now, what will become of it then? Does every event that occurs somehow exist permanently in a timeless reality? Or is the past just a gigantic hole, an incinerator that burns up every lived moment to dust? Nietzsche asked himself this question. Hostile to anything that remotely smelled like metaphysics, he appealed to the Stoic doctrine of the eternal recurrence. This moment is real and will always be real because it will return again and again to infinity. In his posthumously published Will to Power, he even purports to offer a proof of this based on Newtonian mechanics and determinism. But this isn't about proof. That the course of historical events is preserved for all future time by the eternal recurrence is something worthy of belief. The price of this belief, however, is fatalism, which Nietzsche gladly embraced. Amor fati, love of fate. Another, cruder idea, less satisfying than Nietzsche's, although it doesn't carry the heavy price of fatalism, is the book of the recording angel. God knows, because God is watching everything that happens in the universe, or, if not God, then a recording angel. The problem is, how do you know, absolutely and for sure, that the recording angel never lies? I explored the idea that recording angels might lie in one of my short stories, science fiction stories, for the online Pathways to Philosophy program, The Possible World Machine. Well, let's say a face appears in the clouds or a voice booms from a burning bush. Why should I believe it? Consulting my own metaphysical beliefs, I feel that fatalism is false and must be false. Unless we are prepared to allow that the future is not set, John Connor's message to Sarah Connor in the movie Terminator, then there simply is no hope for the human race or for me personally. If fatalism is true, then every thought that comes into my head, every move I make, is preordained. Human action is an illusion. I also believe that the past is real, that it is unthinkable that it should be burned to dust, for reasons that Milan Kundera gives in his novel, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I will not accept that this moment, this very moment, will become nothing. That thought is simply impossible to bear. So what? I have beliefs, metaphysical beliefs. Call them, if you like, pictures in my head. They are pictures I can't get rid of, no matter how hard I try. The notion that the reality or unreality of the past, or the truth or falsity of fatalism, can be settled one way or other by a so-called theory of meaning is facile and absurd. I know that. Well, I once thought, you could settle this question, not exactly by a theory of meaning, but what I call the dialectic. But I've changed my mind about that. So the thought that you could settle this by a theory of meaning, by an analysis of language, in other words, is absurd. I know that. Any idea of a philosophical proof or disproof is out. But I also find it difficult to embrace the idea that there is something out there that makes my metaphysical beliefs true or false, according to whether they correspond or fail to correspond with reality or transcendent reality. Rationally, when metaphysical beliefs clash, when they are absolute loggerheads, if the opposition can never in principle be resolved, then both beliefs must be false. Kant said this in his Antinomies of Pure Reason, in the Critique of Pure Reason. And I know that too. Well, I won't say I know it. It seems inevitable that when you have two opposite theories that cannot possibly ever, neither one can win, then they both lose. Any attempt to justify one side against the other is futile. It cannot be the case that fatalism is true, and it also cannot be the case that fatalism is false. It cannot be the case that the past is real, and it also cannot be the case that the past is unreal. Once again, we have reached the cosmic stop sign. You can't go there, not in reality, not in thought, and yet I still believe. Believe what, for heaven's sake? Don't come at me with your "it must be one or the other" routine. Either your belief is a genuine, meaningful thought, or else it is just nonsense. I refuse to take the bait. This is the thing I wanted to capture. This evanescent thought that slips through one's fingers so easily. This is something or not nothing. Keep your eyes on it. Don't let it go. This is the thing, the most important thing. Don't repeat mindlessly, "a nothing would serve as well as a something about which nothing can be said." That's Wittgenstein's famous comment. You know that's a lie. Don't lie to yourself. I hope you're getting this. I mean, you can't... Here we have these beliefs. They can't both be true. I mean, you can say they're both false, but what does that mean? We still have this picture, this idea in our minds of there being a difference whether fatalism is true or fatalism is false, there being a difference whether the past exists as something real or past doesn't exist, and yet there's nothing in principle that could settle it. What kind of belief is that? What kind of truth is that? What question is it? What kind of a question is it? It's a mystery. This is about the question. I know absolutely and for sure that there is something I do not know. The question is real, but it has no answer. What to do? If you're in a mood to entertain yourself, you could construct a metaphysics of belief. Simply make a list of all the things you can't help but believe, quote unquote, such as the reality of the past or the falsity of fatalism, and construct your picture of metaphysical reality on that basis. Metaphysics without ratiocination. Nothing follows from anything else. There are no entailments. Logic is OTOs. Draw a picture and colour it any colours you like. I'm not saying that's a completely pointless thing to do. It's not pointless. It helps you keep your mind focused on the question, if it does that. I'm happy to give that a miss. I'll leave that game to others. Colouring in pictures is not something that we philosophizers do, because we're grown-ups. We know better. Well, I suppose it's something that Aristotle did. You could say Aristotle did it, and he was a grown-up. Aristotle put forward in his philosophy, in his metaphysics, the very sensible view that the past is real, that there are truths about the past, but the future is not real. There are no truths about the future. And the famous example he gives is the sea battle. And this is something the Greeks were doing on frequent occasions. They had these ships called triremes that were incredibly fast. They had hundreds of oarsmen and a big battering ram at the front. And they would just ram each other, or they would throw fire onto the decks of the other ships. And the outcome of the sea battle that's going to occur tomorrow, we don't know what it's going to be. Will the sailors be brave enough? Will the ship hold up? Will it be rammed, or will it succeed in ramming the other ships, etc.? You don't know. And Aristotle took the view that there's no fact in reality as to whether the sea battle will occur or whether the sea battle will be won or lost. It's an open question. It's an open future. The past is closed, but the future is open. So that's a very sensible metaphysical belief. But you can't prove it. All you can do is state it. But then the question is, what exactly are you stating? It's not a fact in any meaningful sense. It's not something that you could verify or falsify. It's not something that you could do experiments on to see whether, which theory is the best theory or anything like that. It's a completely unanswerable question. And so, a metaphysics of belief would be just, well, this is the picture we like. It's a better way to go about the world if you think, like this video, right? It wasn't a fact how this attempt at making a video would go. It wasn't a fact this morning. It became a fact when I made the video, and not before. That's a good policy to think that way, because if you think in a very fatalistic way, it's just extremely depressing. And then again, it's a good thing to believe the past is real, because if you believe the past is unreal, nothing really matters. Nothing that ever happened in the past matters. And, thinking about the things that have happened in the human race the last 100 years, 2 great wars and so on, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me because I was born after the end of the Second World War and all the horrors that occurred then. You bet it matters. I think about it. It's real to me, but it's not just real to me. It's impossible to get rid of this idea that it's something that really did happen. It exists in the past. That's just a metaphysical belief. You can go round and round in circles, you can talk about it 100 times, but it won't get you any closer. It won't get you any further along the road. It won't get you past the cosmic stop sign. And that's that. See you next time. Bye.